most psychiatric disorders.
Opening the third eye.
Yes, of course, up to 100%.
Did you know that when people with psychiatric illnesses are in a mental hospital, they all have one symptom? Cockroaches are running all over them. Do you know what it feels like to perceive an entity when... It's amazing, and this usually happens with drug addicts because illegal substances shut down the physical body, and you start to feel more of the mental, astral, etheric, whatever body, and you begin to sense with your energy body those entities that are sitting on you. And since drug addicts have a lot of them, scientists say that these are hallucinations, but specifically, everyone experiences the same thing.
They say that cockroaches and spiders are crawling, and they say that this is... Well, they don't see them.
And it's amazing that everyone has this symptom.
It's amazing that many psychiatric disorders involve people speaking in different voices, barking, right?
That's an entity. Although we can't deny that a person's mind might just be genuinely broken.
This is not an open third eye. Yes, it's premature. There are also such cases.
But it seems to me that a certain number of cases in psychiatry are just that kind of case.
You know, this is actually a pretty funny video. And it became funny exactly at the moment when the man said that there are other reasons for a person's psyche to simply break down, and there are no entities there, no open eye. At that moment, the video turned into, well, yes, that can happen. It can happen when a person truly perceives the energetic aspects of this world, and their mind can't handle it, it can't balance it out, and there are situations when the brain truly breaks down, and a person perceives illusions, things that don't exist, things that aren't manifested on the energy level. So there are variations where he sees the energetic process and he's considered crazy. There are variations where he sees his own imagination and he's also considered crazy. Yes, that's right. Now, regarding those sensations that are felt on the surface of the body, this is actually a pretty common effect that practicing individuals go through. When the intensity of the energy flows through the physical body reaches a certain level, a person really starts to feel like someone is running over them. And it's so vivid, so direct. Not an illusion that I was sitting and staring, thinking, damn, I feel this, I need to understand, is this physics? Is something happening in physics? Or, well, what is this? What am I feeling? I was sitting and staring at my hand, trying to understand at what level these sensations are manifesting. Well then, over time, when I started teaching, and when other people began to tell me about the same thing, when it was even roughly calculated at what intensity of energy flow these effects appear, it all actually becomes quite simple.
So in essence, is it also energy?
This is the effect of energy on the physical body. Our physical body has different degrees of tension and crystallization, and when we cleanse our physical body with an increasingly powerful flow of energy, these crystallizations start to break down. When they break down, you might feel the tiny muscles of the hair follicles twitching. Not the hairs themselves, but the muscles of the skin's hair follicles. You might feel the muscles of the tiny blood vessels twitching, the capillaries. And you feel like someone is really crawling over you, like there are worms moving under your skin. So you feel all of this, it's obvious, but this is all because the energy is getting stronger and stronger, and the physics starts to reorganize. It really begins to move at its most subtle levels. In most cases, when these tiny muscles of a person start to move, you feel that the technique has come into play.
But this is specifically during practice, right? Or can you just feel it, for example?
No, all of this can appear in the moment when you're in everyday life, for example, after practices, with a certain delay. Why? Because in practices, a person is mostly relaxed, released, and disconnected from physics. The body is in an intermediate state between sleep and wakefulness. It's in a kind of trance, and you don't use your physical body. So there's no causality in feeling these processes, and when you start to move, when you start doing something, you tense a muscle. The energy hits that muscle, and this effect happens. This sensitivity appears in that moment, and yes, that's when you start to feel like someone is running around. It's all the tiniest muscles of the body that are working. That's because they are trying to tense up, and the energy doesn't allow them to do that. The channel opens up, you tense your hand, relax it, and the channel starts to open up quickly again, and you feel those little things running around, like little bugs on you. This is all the interaction between physics and energy. When an entity jumps on you, you feel it differently. For example, a fairly common manifestation of an entity's influence is when your finger starts to twitch involuntarily. And you can't do anything about it. You can't control it. It just twitches and twitches, twitches and twitches. That's when there's a chance that some entity is having an influence on you.
So this can happen, for example, on your hand or somewhere else on your body, right?
Well, these spasms can occur in other parts of the body, but personally, what I've encountered and observed is that it was my left index finger, right?
So at that time, there was an entity on you, right?
Yes, yes. And my body reacted in sync with the pulsation of that entity.
And what did you do then?
I didn't do anything. I don't know. Sometimes I let these entities pass through me like they're in trains.
Did you sue people? No.
This is for me. Well, in my tradition, in my practice, this is not a problem at all. So yeah, we live in a world filled with energetic beings. And so I'll lead you through the experience.
So if our energy is capable of handling this, then in general,
our energy doesn't even have anything to deal with. It's the same as being covered in all sorts of microorganisms. Bacteria, viruses, there's just so much of it, both inside and outside the body. So what's there to worry about? For us, this is normal. We have all sorts of bacteria crawling around in our stomachs, like lactose ones, fig ones, all kinds of them. So it keeps crawling and crawling. There are no problems with that. The same goes for energetic beings passing through us. Yeah, if a person is playing around with substances, then the portals that are present in us are more open. A large number of beings pass through you, and some of them can interact with you. The question is different. How does your psyche react to this? And if something goes through your mind saying, danger, then you also go, oh, I saw something. And if a person passes through your psyche saying, it's all completely obvious, what's there to be surprised about? Then you react the same way. Oh, something else just flew out of me. It flew out and flew out.
I'm sure many have seen in churches or on the internet where
Exorcism.
Yeah, exorcism rituals are performed when a person is bending, barking, all sorts of things are happening to them, and they try to drive the entity out of them using a cross. Is it really possible to do it this way?
Well, I can tell you this. Certain exorcists do exist, and this profession definitely has its place. And certainly, certain people have techniques, various ritual techniques, that allow them to break that possession in specific situations where an individual person is possessed. That definitely, truly exists. However, what I see in the videos is just often a person is acting like an idiot. It's just nonsense. You can observe this, for example, at a disco or somewhere where a powerful subwoofer is thumping rhythmically. If some people get into the rhythm, into their resonant rhythm, then a person starts to behave like an animal. We have the entire spectrum of energy within us, all of it. And accordingly, when for some reason a person drops down to the lower spectrum of their energies and allows them to take control over their physical self, the person behaves very strangely. But it's still a person, it's still their nature, and there are no entities involved. It's me. I found myself in these situations interacting with people who were having fun with such sessions, and it even got to the point where we have erogenous zones, very intimate areas on the body, and the person who pretends to be performing an exorcism occasionally presses on those points. You just start to freak out. Everything starts to annoy you. You begin to get irritated. It's like, imagine someone periodically shoving a finger up your butt while looking you in the eye. You'll probably start to get nervous too. What's going on at all? And it's like, all the demons are going to come out of him. No, they were just deliberately messing with your nerves by pressing on a very intimate spot. It's located around the heart, and that's why you start to freak out. And since you were told that demons are going to come out of you right now, you start to believe that they are actually coming out. I was present in all these things. I participated myself. And when I let go of control and said, okay, I want to act silly too, I also started doing all sorts of nonsense. And then I was like, okay, I'm tired of doing this. I harmonized myself again and returned to a normal state.
Earlier, you said that drugs actually open doors for all sorts of entities.
Yes, that can happen, but not all drug entities. I was talking about alcohol.
Alcohol? And how does it affect?
Alcohol really opens up the space of the second gates. This is a portal. This portal is located at our knee level, both in the back and the front. And this portal, why gates? Because it's a passage to another dimension, and alcohol certainly helps to open this this area of space and the opening of this teleport to the world of inorganic beings, and they start crawling right out from under your feet. If you've had enough to drink and are in a state to perceive them, well, you might go crazy. You'll start having delirium tremens or something like that there, and if you... Well, there's also a nuance here. If a person is drunk and their body is no longer responding to them, then they won't be able to go crazy because their perception is just a mess. So there's really nothing for him to be afraid of. Why does delirium tremens start after a person seems to have come out of that state of alcohol intoxication and they begin to see this? Because it seems like control is being restored. Perception starts to focus somewhat, but that edge, that boundary is still blurred. The portal is still open, it hasn't closed yet. And then all of that starts happening just like they describe.
All right. But if we don't consider such an extreme, if a person isn't drinking heavily but can occasionally allow themselves to have a drink, does it still affect them? Can entities still come out of them like that?
I can tell you even more. These entities can come out of you even when you're sleeping, without any substances. It's just our nature.
So alcohol just makes it worse.
It has a significant effect.
And what about cigarettes?
I haven't noticed that cigarettes have any effect. Cigarettes just cloud your mind, they dull your thoughts, and they act like painkillers. So they slow you down and take away your ability to perceive. So this is a bit about nicotine. This is a bit about something else.
Some kind of narcotic substances.
Here we need to look at what substances we're talking about. Even if we take the official data on this, there are, I think, 4 types of narcotic substances. There are hallucinogens and some other things. I'm not very knowledgeable about this. But here we need to look again at what exactly we're discussing. Yes, there are substances that open up the space for inorganic entities. There are substances that open the heart, the chest area, and the portals that exist at that level. This is the 5th gate. There are substances that open portals in the areas of the head that exist. These are different processes, different effects.
But you can indeed reach through practices.
Yes, we constantly do this in our practices and engage in it without any substances. It's just that when you do this with the help of a substance, you're not training anything. You're not achieving anything.
So it turns out to be something artificial. Well, yeah, it's not for you.
Well, you see, it's like with athletes, right? There's bodybuilding, for example, where doping control is at some minimal level, just to check the box. They're just consuming everything, like growth hormones and steroids. Something else, insulins, I know, they inject themselves with those that are strictly by prescription, right? For people who are sick with sugar, they just push themselves to eat more. So it does happen, but what happens to them afterwards? Unfortunately, some don't even live to be 30. Although these aren't even drugs, it's something completely different. So a person pushes themselves to exhaustion, right? They gain that bit in muscle mass, but they become disabled. That's it. They're not viable. The same goes for these substances. Yeah, you can inject something into yourself, get some effect, but you'll never repeat it without that substance. And you're burning yourself out with it. You just exhaust yourself. Your resources are quickly running out. Nothing happens for free. It's the same when let's just take a regular moment. Coffee, energy drinks. Everyone understands perfectly well that if you keep drinking energy drinks and don't let yourself sleep, at some point you'll just collapse unconscious. But if there's a little coffee somewhere, you can sip on it just to add a bit of energy for today. But at that moment, you're pushing yourself too hard. You're paying for the present with your future. If we're talking about coffee, that's still okay. It's not such a big price to pay. With energy drinks, the price is much higher. So the substances that allow you to unlock different processes, you seriously pay for your future with today. And that's not really your skill at all.
All right. If we go back to the topic of mental illnesses, in what cases can it really be an open third eye? And where is it just a purely physiological breakdown of the psyche?
Well, give me the mentally ill, and I'll tell you who has what. So what are we going to talk about now?
So there are some nuances that can help us determine.
About you, me, with you.
The effects can indeed visually be the same in both cases.
Well, look, a person who is under the influence of an alien consciousness, an inorganic being, possessed, you will feel a certain inner horror when you're near that person. So even if he's not looking at you, even if you're not looking at him, you're just looking out the window, and he's being brought into the room right behind you, you'll feel a chilling kind of horror, like something inhuman is approaching you. some kind of, I don't know, alien that you've never seen, well, the effect is quite characteristic. Yeah, it's not 100%, but the effect is quite characteristic. A person with an open third eye, But again, what is the third eye?
What is it really? The third eye? Me too.
So what is the third eye?
Well, maybe it is. The best.
Okay, let's put it this way. A person who has extrasensory perception has the ability to see, but they don't understand what's happening to them. No one explained to him what was happening. These people, they can see you. They can say things that you don't expect to hear from them. Interacting with this person, you're like, where does he know this from? Why did he say that? So, you'll keep stumbling over things that just don't fit into your worldview, that in front of you is simply a sick person. These people are actually called clairvoyants. They exist in Christianity, in monasteries, and there are lines to see them, although they sometimes behave very strangely.
And can you do it with energy? To reach such a state,
Of course, we strive for that state. I just explain to people what we're doing and what effects will come from it. I warn them.
and what effects come from that?
All sorts of things. Well, for example, you'll hear things that aren't happening. You'll smell scents that only you can sense. You'll be able to read information about a person just by glancing at them. There are effects, and there can be effects where you close your eyes to lie down and sleep, and then things start happening. So spinning and twisting, there are some fireballs flying at you, and if your psyche isn't ready for that, well, you might try to take something. At that moment, some kind of, I don't know what they call it, calming, exactly, yes. That's exactly what they're called.
All right. The third eye, it's located in the forehead area. Well, at least that's what we're being told.
Listen, the third eye, again, is a term that implies that you see something, that you perceive something. Well, for example, still in the first year of practical energy work, I explained that we have many processes here. We have a process called the sixth gate in the front and the back. We have the sixth energy center there. We have channels that run through this area. We have eyes where Shivas and shafts are manifested. So here we have the primary elements manifested. Ether behind the eyes, the primary element of fire in the middle of the brain, and the primary element of water. So there are many of these processes. From my side, I can say this. When you have a very high degree of energy mobility in this area, you see everything, you are aware. When everything there is overgrown with crystals, with constricting structures and spasms, no matter what you do, your third eye won't open.
So working and practicing, you could say that in any case, if you reach that state, your life will get better and you'll get to where you want to be.
No, apparently that's what you could say.
How?
Well, it's like saying, well, can we say that if I have my pockets full of money, my life will get better? Yeah, maybe someone will smash your head in an alley and take that money from you. So you can't really say that.
So how can you protect yourself from negative influences?
How will you manage that? That's what defines your life. It's not about what you have, but how you manage it.
So it's not just about a person going into practice. It's also important then, accordingly, where is it not the case?
Where is it not the case?
I don't know.
I don't know either. In anything a person achieves, again, it's about how you manage it. Here's a person, for example. He wanted to become a politician and got into power. If he manages it in a way that makes people around him feel more comfortable and cozy, then yes, they'll carry him on their shoulders. Everything will be great. And if, having reached power, he manages it in a way that to negotiate with everyone and steal as much as possible, well, that's probably not going to lead to anything good. So it all depends on how you manage it. Yes, it's an opportunity. Yes, it's power. Yes, it's strength. Yes, you surpass the people around you. It's brazen, if not 2, not 3, not 4, depending on how much time you spend training. But if you manage it well, doubtful, there will be something for you too. Management.
But how can you tell if a person will manage it well or not? For example, a person has a request and they go into practice. He practices regularly, for example. But accordingly, then he doesn't see the results. He doesn't get them. So he gained knowledge, but he doesn't see results. Shh, wait a minute.
If he has the skill, the knowledge, the mastery, how can he not see results?
And maybe he wants to manage this knowledge in a way that's not quite right. I don't know, in a negative way.
Well, then he will have negative results. The result will be there no matter what. Well, look, let's say I earned 100,000 million billion. And I spent it all on orgies, parties, drugs, racing, motorcycles at 300 on the MCAD. Well, most likely my life will come to an end. Well, I earned 100,000 million billion.
I just want to understand, how can a person know how to manage it properly? To manage it? Money is knowledge, it's energy, and something else. So does he get it or not? Because he manages it correctly or incorrectly, as you say.
If what a person does leads him to the grave, he's managing it incorrectly. If what he does leads him to the body of light, the realization of Shriyan, the attainment of freedom, then he is managing it correctly.
What is the body of light?
The body of light is when our physical part, physics, psyche, and energy, when our physical self transforms into energy, this is the body of light.
So basically, can every person initiate this process?
Listen well. Basically, of course, yes. Basically, any person with an economic education can become the president of our country. But the essence doesn't reflect reality, unfortunately. So it's a huge effort. This is huge. It's an investment of time. This is life. You need to live your life in a way that you achieve this. It's not about practicing for 15 minutes or going to some courses, but about living life. Well, I'm already living this life, so... And someone just found out about me today. So, no one will ever give you any guarantees. In nothing. Everything is in your hands. If you realize this, then you start with these hands. Cross your hands in the direction you need to go. If that's the direction of the light body, well, that's fine. If it's any other direction, you'll end up in the grave. That's an obvious fact. So, where is the good or bad, right or wrong in all of this? Yes, you can't. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So I decided that it's right for me, if I actually realize this light body and spend my whole life moving in that direction. Someone will listen to me and say, you need to have a yacht, a Rolls Royce in the garage, and a house from the 50s. Well, look, we have those houses over there. A house for a home, and a home for a house. In one house lives one person, I don't know. In another house live the people who work in that house to keep it maintained. And in the third house, there are people who take care of the previous two. Well, I mean, there is a renunciation. Are they going to live forever or something? Or will they never get sick and be completely unknown? Yes, they are just like everyone else. They'll grow old and die, and that's it. Well, for me, I'm not ready to spend my life on such achievements. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that I would refuse. Yes, no, I would agree to live like that. But I'm not ready to spend my life on that. I'm ready to spend my life on what potentially gives me a chance. Not to end up where everyone else will. Well, maybe not everyone. As they say, prove it to me, brother.
Thank you, Anton, for the answers. We'll leave the link to the courses in the description below the video. Also, write your questions and impressions. Maybe we'll answer them in the next video.
Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical Energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.